Hey guys, in today's video I want to teach you guys how to create this very simple application that we have here. So all this is, it's a basic to-do app, except a lot of the ones on YouTube are just very simple ones where you have input, you add something in and then it shows on a list and then you can just tick it off as done. For this one I actually wanted to show you guys how to use drag and drop. So this uses this package here, so React Beautiful DnD, and if any of you guys have ever actually worked as a web developer or anything, or even a software developer, and follow the agile development style, then you might have used Jira, and Jira, specifically the next gen Jira, I think is what they call it. This is actually the people who made this, so this is why it might actually look a little bit familiar. So yeah, it's just a basic drag and drop. We can add new items. So finish making this video. We can add that and then move that one around. So yeah, I want to show you guys how to make this. So let's get into it. Okay guys, so to get started, you want to open up your IDE, and then inside your IDE or wherever you want, just open up a terminal. So what we want to do is just create our basic create React app template. So just npx create React app and then whatever directory. So I've already run this. Once that's done, that'll probably take a minute or two. And once that's done, we next want to install the actual dependency. So it's actually just this. So npm I that. So I've also run this. This will also take another 1 or 2 minutes, so you might want to pause the video until that's done. Okay, so now what I just want to do is start up a development server. So npm run start. Then I can close this one out. Next, let's go to our app and let's go to the let's go into source and then to our app file. Now all we want to do is just remove that, remove all of this, and just actually we'll keep that. Let's just say test, just to make sure everything's working. So as you can see, it's working and we can see test. I just realized there's something else that we probably should have installed, which is UUID. So you want to type in npm I UUID, and I'll let that run in the background. Okay, so one of the key things with this is we want to have our data structure in such a way that it's really easy to manipulate. And with this, generally, I know with hooks, you most of the time want to have multiple states to deal with multiple things. But for example, you might be thinking that it would be simpler to have, let's say, 3 states, one for your done column, one for your in progress, and one for your completed. But I actually find it's much simpler to actually just have one and mutate that. Otherwise, you have to do things like switch statements to know exactly which set state you should be using. So I think hopefully that'll become clearer as we go on as to why this is actually easier to have all of your state in one use state hook instead of spreading it out. So also import that. So use state, and then I want 3 columns. So the way I'm gonna do it is like this. So say to do. And it's going to be an object. We're going to have in progress, and we're also going to have done. So right now I'm not doing anything related to React Beautiful DnD. I'm just setting up the data structure. And then in here I just want title. So title is just going to be the thing that we show at the top. And I actually just realized we should probably also install Lodash. So npm I Lodash. Because so we can map through this array, which is one of the things we're going to be doing. So it's going to have a title, so just say to do. Let's add in a title for the other ones, so title in progress. The reason that I'm using double quotes here, by the way, is just because for this one I need double quotes, and I'll just show you guys what I mean. See, this actually throws an error, but instead if we put it in double quotes, it's fine. I know these ones don't show an error, but just for consistency I want to keep it. So yeah, we have that in progress, and then this one, let's just say title is completed. So we can have different titles to what we have here. Okay, and then each one I want it to have its own items. So an item is going to be an object, and then the data inside of that is an object with an ID and some data. So ours is going to be really simple. So our item, let's say item is going to look something like this. It's going to have an ID, which is just some unique UUID, and it's going to have some sort of data. So really I just want like a name for this, like clean the house, something like that. That's the purpose of this. I know if you guys want to do something more, something more complex, you might have users assigned to each task, things like that. In which case, this is where you probably hold that data. But yeah, that's what an item is going to look like. And I'll just leave it here as a reference. So let's add in items to the other ones. So this item. Okay, so now let's actually take a look at the React Beautiful DnD. Just look at some of this documentation. So this is a really nice graphical representation of exactly what we need to do. So we have the drag drop context, which is sort of like a wrapper for everything, everything that involves React DnD. And then we have our droppable. So this is what is going to be our columns. And then aside the droppables, we're going to have our draggables. So these are things that we can move, and droppables decide where we can put these. So we're going to have 3 of these, along with as many of draggables as we want. And the draggables can go inside any of the droppables. So it might sound a bit high level and a bit confusing, but that's how it works. And I'll show you guys how to actually code this. So first, let's look at the drag drop context. So this actually has one required prop, which is the on drag end. So let's start with that. So let's say drag drop context. And then let's say, for now, I'm just going to do on drag end and just console log this E. This is required field. And then inside of here, now we can put our droppables. So like I said, we want 3 droppables, one for to do, one for in progress, and one for done. So let's do let's map through them now. So let me also just restart the development server. So npm run start. Let's import Lodash from Lodash. Then let's just do lodash.map. I think the first parameter is going to be state. And then the second one, we get the element. And then we get the key. Or like we get, I think, let's call this data. So data is going to be this. And key is just this. So that's how it works. And then this is actually a callback function, by the way. I think, yeah. There we go. Okay. And then all I want to do is just return. So for now, just to make sure everything's working, let's just return the key. So you can see we have to do, in progress, and done. So that's working fine, and we get the key. Now what I want to do is I want to return a droppable from, so I want to return a droppable. Now you can't put normal children in here. So there's actually a render prop. So this actually calls the children as a function. So what I mean by that is we have to actually pass in a function here. So and droppable is going to call children as a function. And the reason it does is so it provides us some props. So provided and snapshot. So these are props provided to us by droppable from React Beautiful DnD. So this might look a bit confusing. If you've used Formic before, Formic does something very similar to this. So you don't actually need to worry about what these are yet. What you need to know is that these are things that are essential to use the drag and drop that are taken care of by React Beautiful DnD rather than us having to take care of it. A snapshot specifically, for now, I'm actually just going to remove because I don't want to confuse you guys. But provided is something that we have to, I think the best way to show you guys what provided is to actually use it. So what I'm going to do is just return. So in here we can just return JSX like normal. And we should actually, so this is going to be a column. So I'm going to put a div. And actually, one more thing I'm going to do is instead of putting the droppable right here, I'm going to actually wrap this. So I'm going to wrap this inside of a div. Give this a class name of column. And then here put the droppable. Just so that outside of because I want to put a h3 with the name. So if I do data.title, so we can get this. And then because I don't want this title to be part of the droppable, right? I want it to be above it. So a good way to think about it is if we put it inside here, it will be here, the title, but I want the title to be above it. So if that makes sense. And I think if we look at this right now, it's, there's no styling on it, so that's why it might seem a bit confusing. But yeah, so now we have the droppable. So the droppable is just going to be a div, and we actually have to pass some stuff to it. So first of all, we have to give it a reference, and it's going to be provided.innerref. So this is so that React Beautiful DnD knows which div is the droppable one. We have to give it a reference. We also have to then spread in some additional props. So provided.droppable props. And I think that's it for this. Let me just also give it a class name of droppable column. And I think that and of course we also need an ID for each droppable. So it's going to be droppable ID. So this is so it knows which. So let's say we're taking a draggable, which I know we haven't gone through yet, but let's say we're taking an item and we're dropping it into one of our 3 columns. It needs to be able to separate those 3 columns out. So it's just an ID for it. And the ID I'm going to use is just the key because those are unique. So this has to be unique, by the way, remember that. Let's just say key. So this is the key from this. So and remember, all of this is inside the map. So when any data that I'm putting from here or here is just data from here. So that's the key, and this is the data. So just keep that in mind. I don't want to confuse you guys. So we've provided a ref. So this is for React Beautiful DnD. We've given this div some additional props. This is just so that it functions correctly, and then we just added a class name. Okay, so we have all of those. So now what I'm just going to do is just a little bit of styling. This is just because I want it to be clear to you guys as we're developing this, instead of doing all the styling at the end. So let's just open this up. I'm just going to remove all of this. I think, so we have app, we have column, and then we have droppable column. Okay, so what we can do is just say app display flex width 100%. So that's our app, and so these are all going to be columns, and then I want each column. So I just want to do column. I'm going to do let's see, justify content space around, and then I want to do app dot column. I want to give this a width of 30%, and then let's just see how that looks. So yeah, that seems all right. And then if we just check this, so each column has this, and then this is the actual droppable, which doesn't have a height, so that's why it doesn't actually show up as anything. So let's grab that class. So let's do, actually let's just do it directly. So we do this. So droppable col, let's give this a, so this is inside column, so we're just going to give it a width of 100%. And then for now, just give it a fixed height of just 50 pixels. And just give it a background color of gray. Okay, so these are droppables, right? So I hope that makes sense. So I hope this clears things up a little bit. So now let's add in some draggables. So let's just hard code a couple for now. So if I just say, so we have item here. And I actually just want to import v4 from UUID so that I can just do v4. So this would just generate a random UUID. So if I console log this, you'll see what I mean. Yeah, as you can see, it's a unique ID as a string. And this is actually quite important. These, sorry, not those, these droppable IDs and draggable IDs actually need to be strings. They can't be integers. So just keep that in mind. If you do have yours as integers, I would just, I would either convert it to a string and maybe put a little tag in front of it to know if it's a droppable or draggable. So just keep that one in mind. And I just realized because it's a map, we do need to have a key on this. So let's just say key just key. I think that should be fine. Okay, so now that we have our droppables, let's actually add some items. So let's put item in here, and we also have to create another one. Say item 2, and let's put that one in here, for example. Okay, so now for each of these, let's also loop through our items and show some of that. So let's do, so this is our provided, let's do data.items. So this is one of these .items, .map, so we get the elements and the index. And what I want to do is I want to return a draggable. So let's do draggable. And a draggable is the same as a droppable in that this actually has to be a function. So we get provided again, and we also get a snapshot. For now, I'm going to ignore the snapshot just to not confuse you guys. We'll get into exactly what a snapshot is. It just provides some details that we can use for things like styling. So the provided, and once again we have to return some JSX from this. So once again we have to wrap this in something like a div, and then inside of this div we have to say the reference is equal to provided dot inner reference, inner ref. We have to give it some props, so provided dot draggable props. And we also have to do one more thing. So here you can see in droppable, we only provide it with droppable props. Now that's fine. But in here, we also have to provide it with draggable props and the drag handle props. So you might be wondering, what is the drag handle props? Because the draggable props are just props that are required for handling drag and drop within HTML5. But the drag handle props are actually for, it's so React DnD knows which element you can actually drag by. Now, that might sound a bit strange, but let's say we had a element, actually it's a bit difficult to show you guys right now. So I think the best thing to do is just keep coding a little bit, and then once we get to a stage where we have it slightly working, I'll show you exactly what we can do with this drag handle props. So we have this, we also have to add in a key to this. Sorry, we have to add in a key. Let's just say element.id. We have to add in an index. So this is also required an index, which this is the reason why we have the index in the map. It needs to know which index of the array is this draggable at. So we have to say index is equal to index. And then we also need a draggable ID. Let's just do element.id. So we have key, index, and draggable ID. I think this is, yeah, just remember to import this. Okay, so we have our provided, we have our draggable, and then let's just do element dot. So elements look like this. So let's just do element dot name. So let's see how that looks. Oh, seems like we have an issue with our imports. So we have, just need to import this. So draggable. Okay, there we go. So now you can see we have clean the house. Let's call this on something different. Wash the car. Okay, so we have clean the house, and we can grab it and actually move it, as you guys can see. And you can see this one even responds to it. And we can move it in different places. And you can see when I dropped it here, it just automatically goes to this because it knows that this is a droppable. You guys might notice that it's not keeping it there, so it just reverts straight back. And that's because it's actually our job to mutate the state, so to edit this to reflect the changes that we get here. And the way that we do that is using this on drag end. This gives us enough data to actually be able to do that mutation fairly simply. But yeah, as you guys can see so far, we have our draggables. So this is a draggable right here. We have our droppables, which is this gray box. And then we can freely move them around. It doesn't stay there, but you can see that they respond to one another. And yeah, it's quite nice. So let's now actually deal with let's just do a little bit of styling first, why don't we? So let's see. We have this. Let's give this a class name. Actually, I can show you guys what the drag handle is now. First, let me just add this class names. Let's say drag. Let's just call this item. So here is what you can do with this drag handle prop. So if I remove it from here, if I create a span called drag by me, and I give this those props. So now if we come back here, I'm trying to click on this cleaned house, but nothing. And even as you can see, my cursor isn't the hand, but as soon as I go over grab by me, you can see you can grab it. So this just decides what you can grab it by. Same for this one as well. I can't grab it by this, but when I try it with the grab by me span, then it works. So yeah, that's how this works. I hope that makes sense. I'm just going to put it back on this and remove the span that we created. Okay, so we have items. Now here's something that I want to point out. These, when we're handling the styling for this, you have to be a little bit careful in how you do your CSS, because what I found is that things like top margins and actually mess up the styling when you drag it. So you can't say anything now because we don't actually have anything. We don't have any top margin or anything like that applied. But I'll show you guys what I mean. So if I do dot item margin 10 pixel 0 pixel, so this is 10 pixels on the vertical axis. So just top and bottom. So as you can see, when I put it here, it goes really far out. And I think an easy way to show this would be if I put item 1 and item 2 next to each other. So you can see it's fine now, but then as soon as I click it, you can see they go out of the box. I'm not sure exactly why this is, but I have seen open issues on the GitHub page. The easiest way to get around this is just to actually only apply margin bottoms to handle your spacing. So we can do margin bottom, let's say 10 pixels. So that's fine for that. And then for your columns, what you can just do is a padding, let's say padding of 10 pixels. I think it should be on this. Yep. And then now you can see it works better. So that is how I would handle that. Just only apply bottom margins on your items, on your draggables, that is. Let's also just give this a color of white and just a border of 1 pixel solid white with a padding 5 pixels and a border radius 7 pixels. Let's also put in the border radius here. And I just realized it's actually meant to be a border radius, not a border right. So border radius. And same with this one. So now if I save that and take a look, we have that working. So now we have a 20 pixel margin here and a 10 pixel one here. So let's sort that one out. So if we just do on our, where is it? Should be this one. So if we do display flex, justify content, actually flex direction column. And then what we can do is instead of 10 pixel padding all around, we want 10 pixel padding on the right, on the top, the right and the left, and 0 on the bottom, because the bottom one will be sorted out by this margin bottom. So we just do 10 pixel top, 10 pixel right, 0 pixel bottom, and 10 pixel on the left. Now there's also one other thing that I forgot, which is on the droppables, so on the columns, which is our droppables, we need to also at the bottom, so here we have the div that we return. At the bottom here, so this is the end of the div, we need to do provided.placeholder. So now if we take a look at that, you can see everything's better now. And of course, still not keeping the positions, but you can see that when I hover over something, it actually expands for it. So if I say I comment this out for now. So now as you can see, when I'm hovering over these, there's no placeholder. So remember to add that in. Okay, so now we have that working. We're able to hover over different areas. The styling isn't the best. Let's just actually add in a background color of gray just to actually see it. So yeah, we have that working. Now let's actually take care of the logic. So here's what I want to do. And also, I just want to clarify one thing. In reality, what I would do is I would have this part, so the droppable. So up until here, I would have this as a component. So the droppable with all of this, I'd have that as a component, and I'd have this as another component as well. So where I map over the items. The reason that I'm not doing them as other components is because I personally find it very difficult to follow when I have to follow multiple files in a video when I'm learning something new. And I think having it all in one place just for learning purposes is actually fine. It's not the best for actual quality of code. This isn't ideal. I would separate them out into different components, but just for learning, I think this is easier to show you guys and get my point across. So now let's actually handle the logic. So let's do a handle drag end. So handle drag end, and we get some data. So let's actually console log what that data is now. And let's take a look at it. So if I go to my console, we're currently in to-dos, and we're on the first index, and we're going to drag it into in progress. So here's what we get. So on drag end runs, as you might think, when the drag ends and when it's dropped. So let's expand this and see exactly what we get. So we don't have too much, which is nice. We have combine, we have destination, draggable ID, source, and destination and source. So these are the two main ones that I want you guys to look at. So destination, actually no, let's start with source. So source is where it came from. So to-dos, so here at index 0, which is correct. So we did grab this one. And destination is where it went to. So we have the droppable ID, so in progress, so here, and the 0 index, so the first one. So we're going to use this information to remove it from source. So we want to take it out of that source, so the to-dos items array. So what we want to do is take this one out of here and put it into here on drag end. So that is our goal. And we also, so I want to show you guys one other thing. So if we just do that, then you can see the destination is actually null because I just dropped it in the middle of nowhere. I didn't drop it inside of a droppable. So that's a little bit of an edge case. And another one is if we just drag it and then drop it at the exact same place, we don't really need to do any sort of changes to state. That would just be unnecessary because you can see the index is the same and the droppable ID is the same. So let's handle those ones first. So if, and let's actually do this, let's say destination and source. So if destination is null, then we just want to return. You don't want to do anything. If destination.index is equal to source.index and the destination.droppable ID, so if they're both being dropped, so if they're both in the same index and they're in the same column, so droppable IDs, is equal to the source.droppable ID, then we just want to return. And just to test these, let's say console log not dropped in droppable. And here I just want to console log dropped in same place. So here I'm just going to drop it in the same place. Here I'm going to drop it outside, so not dropped in droppable. And here if I do it normally, we don't get any new console logs. So it doesn't fulfill any of these two. Okay. So now, what do we need to do to actually get data from here to here, or from anywhere to another items array? So the first thing I want to do is just refresh our memory. So let's say console log from, so that's going to be our source, and then to, and this is going to be our destination. So let's just take a look at it again. So it's going to come from index 0 on to-dos to index 0 on in progress. So we want to remove it from source. So we first want to actually capture which item it is. So which item, we want to hold on to that. Then we want to remove it from our source. So let's say this one, I want to create a copy of this. Then I want to remove this and put it into here. So I want to create a copy of that, remove it from this place, put it into here. Or maybe even put it into here, you know, just change the order of it. Like that. So we need to take care of that. So let's just put it back here. Okay. So let's first create a copy. So what I want to do is say, let's say const item copy is equal to state. And then I want to do state. Then we need square brackets to grab the key by the key, but the key is a variable. So I know normally we do something like to do, but if it was a variable, we'd have to do it like that. So I'm going to say source dot droppable ID. Right, so now we're picking one of these, and then I want to grab the elements inside items. So we know we have the index in source. So if we just look at this again, yeah, so we have in our from, which is source, we have the key, and we have the index, which is of the items. So if you remember here, if I go down to the, so if I go here to our draggables, we have index. So index is our items. So index is the index of the item that we're changing. So this is 0 and this is 1. So I want to do source.droppable_id. So let's say that's going to be to do. And then I want to go .items. So now we're here. And then I want to say which index. So I want to do source.index. Right, so remember the index, it gives us which element was being dragged. So now just to check this, that's console log item copy. So hopefully we get clean the house. And yeah, we do, we get clean the house with its ID. Okay, so we have that. So now we have a copy of this. Actually, we don't have a copy, we just have a reference. So let's turn it into a copy. So now we have an actual copy of this, and this is an object. As you can see, these are objects. So we have this. Now let's actually remove it from this location. So I want to do set state, where we grab the previous state. I want to say prev is equal to spread in prev. It's just to create a copy of that one. Then what I want to do is say prev. We want, let's grab the exact same stuff. So we're at the item level now, except I don't want to do this. I want to do items. So I want to grab previous ones, the previous states. So just think of it like state, don't actually worry about prev. Source.droppable_id. So this one, and then items. And then what I want to do is just remove this item, and we have the index to remove it with. So what I can do is .splice, where we have the start, the start number, so the start index, and how many we're deleting. So the start is actually source.index, and we're just deleting 1. And then I'm going to set state. Not set state, sorry. I'm just going to return prev. Okay, so what we're doing is we're creating a copy of the previous state. We're going into to do, or whichever element whichever column contains the draggable that we're dragging. And we are going into the items. Inside the items, we're removing the item. We're removing a set of items from source index, and then just 1. So we're actually just removing 1 item. But you could obviously delete multiple items, but we don't want to do that. So now if I go into here and I just drag this into here, we're actually deleting it. So that's actually good. I know it looks like it's being deleted from here, but it's actually by default, it would have just jumped back to the left and been deleted there. But it's fine because we actually have a copy of it. So now what we want to do is put that item here into wherever it's been dropped. So I know this is a bit confusing, but I just create some room so you guys can clearly see what I'm doing. I want to now, using the destination, put copy item into the destination wherever it is in state. So the way that I would do that is I'd say prev destination, so where we're going to, where it's being dropped into, dot droppable ID. So once again, this is one of these keys. And just remember, the reason this is why our data structure is really important, because these keys I'm using to edit the state are actually what we passed in as droppable ID keys. So this key is these ones here. So this is why our data structure is actually really important. Anyway, carrying on with this. So we have our prev destination droppable ID. So once again, one of these. I want to go into the items, and then I want to do a splice. So splice actually works in two ways. So as you can see here, it works in two ways. We can either just delete something, or we can delete something and add items to replace what we deleted. So what I want to do is I want to from start index destination dot index, right? I want to delete nothing, because by dropping into here, we're not actually removing anything from here. And from here, from this index, what it's going to do, if I pass in the third parameter, it's going to add items to that index, right? So it's going to, so what I'm going to do is just say copy item copy. So I know this is a bit confusing, so I'm going to go over it one more time. So from our copied state prev, we're going into the droppable ID. So we're going into this one, for example. We're going to say items. So here, we're going to splice from the destination index. So let's say 0, because so this just be nothing. It's going to remove nothing because I set the delete count to 0. And it's going to add in an item. So that's the way the splice works. If you have a third parameter, it's going to actually add the item in to whatever index you put in. It's not going to remove anything. It's just going to shift the ones on the right up one and the ones behind it down one. So just remember that. I know we're using splice, but we're not actually deleting anything. And so that's all we're doing there. So let me just put, so remove from previous items array. And here we're adding to new location, new items array location. And here we are just creating a copy of item before removing from state. So I hope that makes things a little bit clearer. So we're creating a copy of it because here we delete it. And then using that copy, we're actually just putting that copy directly into the new location. So let's test this out. Let's see if it actually works. So if I just drag this here, you can see it stays. So it went from index 0 here on to do to in progress index 0. And now let's say I drag this one from to do index 0 to in progress index 1. So I'm going to drag it above it. So from index 0 to do to index 1 in progress. So I know this is a little bit confusing, and when I was first learning it, it was very confusing because you have to keep in mind that these droppable IDs, I've set them to the keys here, and that these the index is actually referring to the index of these items, as the way that I've decided to structure my data. Now, the thing about this is just my implementation of how I'm structuring the data. There's actually different ways you can implement it, and it's up to you how you want to implement it. My personal suggestion is you keep one state for this. And I know some of you might think, you should probably have to do here and set to do and have that as state and just have this as an array. But then the problem with that would be is, let's say we have a to do one here and then in progress one here and set in progress. Let's say we move an item from here into here, right? So let's say we drag from here into here. Doing the logic for that would actually be really annoying and really frustrating. And another point about that is these could actually be coming dynamically from the database. And if you had it like that, you couldn't dynamically set use states. So, and I know that's a bit confusing, but that's another one of the drawbacks of having multiple states for this. And I've done a lot of testing, and I believe that this is probably the easiest way to implement this. So yeah, that is pretty much it. Let's also just throw in an input. So let's just say a div input on change. Let's just let's create some state for this. So let's do set text e.target.value, and then throw in a button, add on click, add item, so add item is just gonna accept, it's just gonna, what should it do? It just needs to add to do. So let's do set state. I'm just going to return the previous state. Yeah, it also needs to return the item. So I'm just going to say to do is this. So let's just keep the title. So what I'm doing here is just setting the state again with this new item. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to say items is equal to, I'm going to spread in prev.todo.items. So let's just create a copy of this. And then at the start, I'm just going to put in the new one. So it's going to be, oh, we actually have to do this as an object. So let's do that. So say it's going to be an object. So then just to make it clearer for you guys, I'll do it like this. So this object's going to have an ID and a name of text from state. So at the bottom, I'm going to set text to an empty string at the end. And the ID is just going to be v4. I'll call that. And I should probably have this somewhere else. Actually, so I'm just leave it there for now. So let's say test. We add that in. And then, yeah, we can just freely move that one around as well. Okay, so just to one more time go over what I do here. I just copy the previous state. I say to do is equal to almost the same as what we have here. So we have title and items. I keep the title as, oh, I should actually be to do. So if I do test, yeah, it keeps that as to do. And then the items, I just copy in what the items previously were. And then I add in a new one at the start, which is an object with an ID of just v4. So this generates a random string as ID. And then name, which is text. So text is what we put into here. And then at the bottom, I just clear text. I hope that makes sense. I'm just going to one more time go through this, because I know this is probably the most slightly confusing part of this video. So I check if there's no destination, then just do nothing. So that's just to handle this. I check if we put it in the same place, then to do nothing, which is this check. I create a copy of the item where we have the droppable, where we have the source. So source is here. So as you can see, where we have this empty space on the left, that's our source. I use the droppable ID. So this is to do right now. To do is droppable ID. I grab the items and the source index. So currently 0 is the source index. And I just create a copy of that. So I spread it in, which is an object. I then set the state. So I grab the previous state, create a copy of it. I say previous droppable source ID. So very similar to what we're doing here. Dot items, right? So this dot items, for example, I just remove from the start index, which is whatever the source index is, I just remove one. So what I'm doing is just removing the item that we copied here. And then I'm adding that item that we copied to the new location. So I do destination this time. The destination's droppable ID. So let's say that could be in progress. It could also be the same one. For example, here you can see I'm just reordering them. And then I'm putting it in using splice. I'm setting the delete count to 0. I'm just adding in the copy item. Okay, now one final thing before I finish off this video is I didn't go over what snapshot was, so I think I should just do that now. So snapshot, and what I'm going to do is just console log snapshot. So there's 2 of these. Let's first take a look at this one. Actually, let's clear this. So when I click this, I start moving it around. When I move it to different droppables, you can see it changes. So let's just take a look at a random one. So dragging from this within, we have dragging over with, we have is dragging over, and we have is using placeholder. So these are just some, you can think of them as like descriptors to decide exactly what, so you can add styling and things like that. I think for me, the most useful one is actually on the draggable. So if I just look at the snapshot from draggable. So if I drag that and then stop dragging it, you can see combined target for, combined target with, dragging over, so you can see which element is dragging over. Drop animations, so that's when you drop it, there's a little animation there. Is clone, is dragging, so this one's quite useful. So what you can do is, let's say we do item, then we can do is, so snapshot.is dragging, and then we can do dragging like that. Then if I open up our CSS, item.dragging, I could do something like a background color of, let's just do something crazy for now, just coral. Oh, that's because it needs to be like that. So yeah, as you can see, you can style things, for example, when they're dragging. You can also style the droppables themselves to be different when you're dragging over them. But yeah, that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any criticisms, I'd really appreciate that. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate a like. So yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.